You are logged on to the Computer Corner Show. I'm your host, Phil Shortell, the lead instructor at Computer Corner in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And with me here today are my co-hosts, Carol and Joe Petronovich, the owners and creators of Computer Corner. Good morning to you both.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Hey, if you're anxious about abends, or you're antsy about ANSI, or you're averse to avatars, you can listen to us, and we're going to try to give you some advice that you can take to the bank.
The Computer Corner Show is now available via a link from the Computer Corner website at www.compcorner.com and also on YouTube.
And that means that some people listening to us on YouTube may not know who we are, so let us fill you in a bit.
You bet. Computer Corner's been in business in New Mexico for 36 and a half years,
Okay.
offering computer sales, service, training, and electronic recycling to home users, businesses, and state, local, and federal government. We say that Computer Corner is high-tech with a human touch because customer service is our primary focus.
Okay, we hold numerous contracts with government agencies, which includes those with the city of Albuquerque, the county of Bernalillo, the state of New Mexico, and Los Alamos National Laboratories.
Right. As our lead instructor, Phil is our software expert, and Joe's been a techie for 40 years and is a Microsoft Certified Systems Engineer, or MCSE. He's really well versed on hardware and operating systems dating back to before DOS, and he's a huge expert on mining rigs and cryptocurrency.
And Carol holds many sales certifications, so is pretty savvy about different products on the market that many people may not even know about. She's the lead salesperson for many of our government accounts, and they tend to ask for unique items at times, meaning really all the time, pretty much.
Right.
Now on with the show.
Alrighty, so today we're going to talk Windows, specifically about the fact that Windows 7 support is going away in January of 2020 and why you should care about that. We're also going to talk about how Windows 10 has changed since it was first released in July of 2014.
Seems like much longer ago,
Wow.
doesn't it?
Yep.
5 years.
Yeah, but anyway, Microsoft will stop supporting Windows 7 on January 14th, 2020, and what that means is that after that date, there will no longer be fixes to potential security issues in the code, which means in turn that if a hacking vulnerability is detected and theoretically exploited,
Right.
Microsoft has no obligation to fix the vulnerability.
That's a big deal.
So how's that a big deal to everybody out there?
Well, even if you're running antivirus and malware protection and things like that, if you're the first one to get hacked, it's, there's not going to be protection for you.
Right.
So I did get an email from somebody, because I wrote a blog about this too, and I got an email from somebody saying, I don't think hackers are going to go after a 10-year-old operating system like Windows 7. What do you think about that?
I think that's where they would go because that's where the easiest pickings are going to be.
Right.
Well,
I think so too.
They also know that a lot of businesses, a lot of banks are still using Windows 7, and a lot of design CAD industry still using Windows 7. So that's not, you can't take that off the table.
Yeah, you're going to be vulnerable. Face it, you're going to be vulnerable as of January 14th of 2020, and you don't want to be vulnerable. This is not the kind of world where that is a good way to go around. So what do you have to do?
Well, you know what? I want to mention one story. I had one person tell me, well, all I do is surf the internet. And if I use the latest version of Bing, that's an update. And I said, but it's not that simple. Microsoft still sees the operating system first. They're not going to update Bing.
Yeah, it doesn't matter anyway.
The vulnerability is going to be there in the kernel of Windows.
In the kernel, that's exactly
in the
right.
kernel of Windows.
So what
That
are
is
the options for folks?
Well, the option would be to stop using a computer. I don't think that would be a very
No.
viable one this day and age. So what can you do? You can convert to Windows 10.
But if you've got an old computer, it might not even be compatible with Windows 10. Then you've also got to think about your software. Is your software going to be compatible with Windows 10?
And your hardware.
Right? Your printer,
peripherals.
all of that kind of stuff. You know, if you're still running Windows 7, your computer's getting older. And this would be a great time to upgrade to a brand new Windows 10 computer with a brand new warranty.
It actually might be much more cost effective because Windows 10 is no longer free. I mean, when it first came out, if you had Windows 7, you got a free upgrade to Windows 10, but that's long gone now.
Right.
And so the cost of Windows 10 is going to be more than $100, right?
Oh, for sure. Well, plus the labor, unless you do it yourself.
Right.
The one really big thing for everybody to think about is, this is just not an upgrade to Windows 10. You got to consider your backup, your data, all your application software. If you upgrade your Windows 7 system or if you get a new computer, either way, you're going to have to be sure you have good data backup.
Right.
And you're going to have to reload that data onto something. Also, your application software, your programs.
Let's talk about loading this up.
Okay.
Let's say you wanted to go from 7 to 10. You didn't have a disk or anything, but your buddy has the disk.
Okay.
Now, that disk is probably the first generation of Windows 10 that came out there, which they produced probably for the next 4 years. Same version, 1709, I think it was, 1703, 1709. So you load that up, you do all your drivers, you do all the updates, and then you upgrade to 1803. Once again, you do all the downloads, all the updates. Then it's going to prompt you for 1903, all the updates. You've wasted your weekend.
For sure.
Yeah, it really does seem to me that it would be much more cost effective for somebody to just go out, bite the bullet, get a new computer, which you're sure will support all of the features of Windows 10.
That's a good point,
first
too.
of all. You do have your concerns about whether your existing applications will perform on Windows 10 and your existing peripherals, too, your printers and scanners and stuff.
But you're going to have that concern whether you upgrade your
whether
old
you
computer.
do it yourself or not.
Peripherals are going to be cheap to replace, and it's probably time you did that also. The software, I hear this all the time from CAD people, my AutoCAD version, blah, 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 will not work on 10. That's not true. Load it up, get in compatibility mode. Windows 10 will fake it for you to run under Windows 7. I have never seen a piece of software that didn't work this way.
Okay. Got to be something out there that doesn't, but we have not found
sure.
it as of
There,
Probably QuickBooks, older versions of, accounting kind of software,
Yeah.
something like that.
even our 32-bit point-of-sale package here at Computer Corner, I actually did get to run on Windows 10. It's just very, very slow, but it does work.
Okay. So let's face it, folks. You're going to go to Windows 10 whether you like it or not.
Right. And since it was released, I mean, there's been a lot of enhancements. We talked about that on one of the past podcasts.
Yes, we did.
The top things that we liked about Windows 10. And it's so much more stable than when it was first released. And, here's the other thing. As of June of this year, Windows 7 was the most widely used operating system. But as of July of this year, 2019, Windows 10 actually surpassed Windows 7 in its installation base.
So if you were listening to our radio show way back, you know that we weren't too keen on Windows 10 at the beginning. And that was partly because Microsoft offered the free update to people, even though there was a compatibility checking feature before you got the free download to be sure it would work. It still crashed a few computers, one of which was notably mine, or overwrote drivers for sound cards and vid cards. But the free download also allowed you to download Windows 10 if you only had 4 gigabytes of memory, which was really not a smart thing to do because 4 gigabytes of memory was not a really workable solution for Windows 10. Over time now, Windows 10 has stabilized. And on one of the last podcasts, we talked about the top 10 features in Windows 10 that we really like. Now we're going to talk about the enhancements that have been made since its first release.
Well, before that, let me just mention,
Sure.
I wish they would still put that compatibility checker in there, particularly on updates to their version level. The main thing here is this week we upgraded several machines to the latest version 1903, and it crashed without telling you what the problem was. Doesn't even give an error code or anything else. It just said reverting to the previous versions. Tried it a second time, crashed again. What the problem was it needed more hard drive space. These were hard drives that still had 30 to 40 gig left on them, but it wasn't enough. So the solution was do disk cleanup,
Sure.
clean up your system files. This is going to take an hour or two, and then try it again, and it'll work.
Well, that's always something good to do anyway. You
It
need
is
to
good,
do that maintenance on a regular
But if
basis.
you've got a big hard drive, it's not going to be a problem. But if you have a 256 SSD, for example,
Yeah.
it's probably going to fail on you.
when 40 gigabyte is not enough.
When it's not enough. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, times have changed.
They have
Anyway,
With every update that Microsoft has done so far, they've given us more control over how and when the updates would come to you until this past one. We'll have to talk about that more in a few minutes, but
well, anyway, Microsoft Windows 10 Anniversary Update added active hours, that should be in quotes, where you could set up the
Sure.
hours that you are typically on your computer, and Windows would avoid rebooting during those hours.
sure.
Right.
Doesn't seem like that always works, but you can set up to 18 hours in any given day where your computer will not reboot, especially when you're in the middle of something on your computer. That's annoying.
Okay, the April 2018 update also brought with it a faster update installation time. Thank goodness for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
That was one of the things that really made us crazy. They
Yes.
were taking forever to do the updates.
For sure. Now, the biggest change was with the May 2019 update, which allowed us to choose to do updates once every 6 months so that you don't have to install these huge updates immediately. The latest updates will have support for that version for up to 18 months, so you can opt for the smaller updates to the current version. Does that make sense?
I'm not 100% sure, but I think it does. Anyway, you can even skip some updates if you want. That is, until the latest one.
Well, the simplest thing here to do is there's a reason for all these updates. I would pick a time when you're just not going to be on the computer, like during the night. Last thing to do before you go to bed, start it up and just let it run. Just get them all done all the time.
Yeah, the problem, of course, for people like me is it's often in the middle of the night that I suddenly wake up and say, wait a minute, what was the meaning of that word? And I have to go look it up. But then again, probably most of you are a little more sane than most of us who actually work in the
There you
computer
go.
business. Okay, other added features in Windows 10 since its first release: Files on Demand for cloud storage. This feature shows a placeholder on your computer, an icon that links to a file in your cloud storage, and when you click on it, it automatically downloads. And there's also a hidden emoji panel in Windows 10, which I actually started playing with earlier today.
You did.
And then I put it away because it didn't make any sense to me. I'm not an emoji person.
I wouldn't figure you to be.
Anyway, if anybody wants to do it, how do you get to it? Hold down the Windows key and hit the period on your keyboard. The thing that got me about it as I played with it this morning was it says type to find an emoji. You start typing and it starts putting up gibberish on your screen.
Huh.
So I don't think they have that completely worked out yet.
Apparently not.
No.
So there's also the Windows subsystem for Linux now, which we won't go into here since it's mostly for developers and not the average person. But there's also a GPU, or graphic processing unit, aka video card feature.
This feature that is mostly for gamers and miners meaning Bitcoin miners
Yeah.
or other cryptocurrency miners, to see the total GPU usage and view the resources running during a specific application, just like you can see your CPU or processor activity and memory usages.
So
Well,
Windows
it's clear Microsoft doesn't understand mining.
Windows 10 now has a built-in exploit protection feature too. We talked about that on our previous podcast. This came about with last fall's Creators Update, and it's called EMET. What does that stand for?
I don't know.
Okay.
Emmett. I went
Emmett.
to school with somebody named Emmett once.
Yeah.
But of course, we still recommend that you have virus and malware protection. And we recommend Kaspersky, Malwarebytes, and Hitman Pro.
Okay, there's a sandbox feature for testing new software that was added in May of 2019. Why do we call it a sandbox? It's because it lets you go in there and play, and there's no danger of damage to your existing real stuff. It allows you to test untrusted software. You can test in an isolated, secure environment, and when you close the sandbox, all remnants are erased. Unlike what happens when you download a trusted piece of software. You would have to uninstall it to get rid of it, and with some programs, that doesn't even work.
Yeah,
And sometimes
especially-
it leaves remnants
It
behind.
leaves remnants, yes.
Right. There's also some enhancements made to Notepad so that you can now open files that were created in Linux or on a Mac. I don't think many people use Notepad, but I guess I think they should.
Well,
I mean,
yeah, for me, I would rather see people go over to OneNote, which comes with
sure.
Windows 10, than use Notepad because of its far greater capabilities and because of its auto sync between your PC and your phone. I use it extensively for my shopping lists.
Oh,
I sit in front of the computer and I type in, and as a matter of fact, right after we do this podcast, I've got to go out and get eggs, blueberries, sweet potato, apple, kale, zucchini, and a whole bunch of other things. And don't think for the minute there that I'm eating very healthful diet.
that's for your dogs.
That's for my
I know.
dogs.
Very good
I
job.
make the dog food.
Very nice.
And that goes into it.
So they eat better than you do.
They probably do.
All righty. Well, I think we have actually come to the end of our show for today. If you want to be updated when a new show is going to be posted, you can subscribe to our e-newsletter, which is called Bits, Bytes, and Insights. You can do that by going to our website at www.compcorner.com. And when you do this, you'll also get a digital coupon for a free computer diagnostic exam in Computer Corner Service Department.
And we hope that you'll think of Computer Corner for all your hardware, software, service, and training needs. And hope you'll join us again in 2 weeks for our next podcast. Until we meet again, please mind your bits and bytes. This is Phil.
And Carol.
And Joe.
Wishing you carefree computing. The Computer Corner show is logging off.